as I said, 2 inquiries by Stats NZ and the Public Service into the alleged misuse of Census and COVID-19 vaccination data was released Tuesday, with flaws found in how Stats NZ protected the public's information after it commissioned whānau order commissioning agency or WOCA and Waipireta Trust to collect information for the 2023 census through Manurewa Marae. Chief Statistician Mark Soden has stepped down as a result of the findings of the inquiry, threw himself on a sword, and the Public Service Commissioner Sir Brian Roche, who described the findings as calling into question the integrity of the democratic process, has barred agencies from entering into any contracts with WOCA or the Waipireta Trust, something that, by the way, John Tamahere, who runs it, has denied is happening until safeguards are in place. The inquiry report written by former State Services Deputy Commissioner Doug Craig said it was more likely than not that census forms were photocopied at the marae and that information entered into WOCA's database from the marae was more likely than not, at least on some occasions, derived directly from census forms. WOCA and the Trust boss, Te Pāti Māori President John Tamahere, yesterday morning admitted the forms were copied by marae staff, but said the data was not misused by the party. There are further and ongoing investigations, including by the Serious Fraud Office, the Police and the Privacy Commissioner, into allegations of misuse of personal data by TPM. Allan Halse is an employment advocate who represented 6 former marae workers and 1 MSD worker, or the Whistleblowers, and he joins me now. Allan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leah.
I appreciate your time this afternoon. Can we just go back a bit, Allan? What was your role for clarification for these 7 people, and how did it come about that you were involved?
So I represent the whistleblowers as an employment advocate because of their employment issues. So my organisation represents probably never less than 100 employees who are going through troubles at work, mostly to do with bullying, and a lot of the bullying ones end up being whistleblower cases because they're being bullied because of what they know and because the employer doesn't want them to tell anybody what they've seen in the organisation. So that's how I ended up in the role.
I believe one of the people, Allan, the MSD worker, basically on a daily basis was telling her manager what was going on at the marae and what? They just didn't believe her, or they just didn't want to know? What did you get from that, what she told you?
So what I know is they pretended they didn't know, and it's actually worse than that because the MSD whistleblower is still being retaliated against by MSD. So we've been waiting for that report to come out so that we can actually deal with the rest of it, because we needed the report to confirm what we already knew, the evidence that we'd provided. So we've been waiting for that, and now you'll find there'll be more whistleblowing. And so what you've seen from this report is the tip of the iceberg. And when I say tip of the iceberg, and I counted up just before I came on, we have 15 other individual whistleblower cases in public service over 8 separate organisations. In addition to what we're talking about now, and what I know is that if the government are concerned about what they've seen in this case, if they saw and knew what we know, they would be mortified and there would be no confidence in the public service. So we're talking, the cases I'm talking about all belong to government-funded organisations, and what they do, and this is why I was really keen at all stages not to mention the word Te Pāhi Māori, because this isn't a Māori issue. This is an issue that government departments are failing in their obligations. And I can remember I talked to you 8 months ago. It was the 12th of June that you and I spoke last about this, and I listened to that investigation. I talked about that then. I've worked 40 years of my life either in government or local government, and I know what they're legally required to do. I deal every day with cases where the public service are failing to uphold their rules and their integrity and are not complying with the law. So the 15 cases I talk about are part of that. And the point, and you mentioned it right at the start, Leah, and you were spot on, this report would never have happened but for the whistleblowers. So they're brave. Those whistleblowers would say to me, why me? Why did I have to get involved in this? Now, in the report, and it's on page 38, they say, and I'll just read this, it's very brief, we further noted we have taken care not to identify the whistleblowers whom we have had the opportunity to interview. While we have seen insinuations about the credibility or motivation of the whistleblowers made public, we note that we found them credible witnesses and that many of the operational details they set out for us were subsequently corroborated by documentary evidence. So in the work that I do as an employment advocate, we have to have evidence. So we don't make things up. It's evidence-based. So the frustration is that normally we have to basically fight against organisations, and this is a big issue, and it's relevant here as well. The government agencies, the minute we get involved, and by that I mean me, because I'm probably the most outspoken advocate, and probably the most effective in the land, right? Because I deal with bullying cases and lots of them. So they go off and get a corporate lawyer, law firm, and they fight the bullied person or whistleblower. And we've got cases, and I've got documentary evidence from OIA requests where in some cases they've spent more than $900,000 of taxpayer money, not fighting me, but fighting the client. Right. So our client, who I'm working for free, and unless we get a settlement from the employer, they're up against resources that are massive. So they deny, delay, and attempt to discredit all the way through the process. So for people to survive in that employment relationship environment is really, really tough. It's adversarial and it's unsafe, and I think that's probably why I'm probably more effective than most, because I used to play rugby in the front row of a scrum. I'm used to I'm used to having to mix it up with people, and I don't take a backward step. But it's really sad, Leah. Yeah, and if you saw what we've got, I tell you what, it's frightening what we've got. But we do our best within the processes to make it work. And the thing that I believe needs to happen as a result of this, there has to be protection for whistleblowers.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to circle back on a few things there, because you said last year, you had said, hand on your heart, that this is talking about these 7 whistleblowers for the MSD and the Manurewa Marae. You had said, hand on heart, you had seen evidence of breaches in something, either the law or rules, and that the case had more tentacles than an octopus.
Yep.
Yeah. So having said that, what came out on Tuesday, I mean, it still feels like, I mean, they've said what they've said. We've heard from Stats NZ and a few other agencies, but there still hasn't, in my eyes, really proven allegations of misuse of personal data. Is that correct? Or is that still ongoing?
Well, that's ongoing, and you mentioned earlier there's still 3 investigations going on: Privacy Commissioner, Police and
SFO.
And to be perfectly honest, Serious Fraud Office surprised us, and we only heard that at the beginning of this year. So the fact that they've come in obviously means there's something significant they believe that they need to investigate. So all we did was provide the evidence. So the stats report 90% of it relies on evidence that I handed over on behalf of the whistleblowers.
Wow. Jeez.
So I pretty much knew back then what this report would say if it was done fairly. Now, I'm going to give credit to some people, which I don't often do. I said in an interview back then, and that was the one where I spoke about the more tentacles than an octopus with Mike Hosking. I said back then I thought they would try to sweep it under the carpet.
Right.
And they haven't. They haven't. This has been extremely well done. They haven't hidden anything. And when I read the reports, I was happy that they'd actually listened, taken on board. But once again, it's based solely on evidence. Now, you don't often get evidence, but in this particular case, we did. And we had a lot of evidence. And to be fair, in this day and age, it's not hard to get evidence because you can go on Facebook page and download stuff. And so a lot of the evidence came from the Manurewa Marae and social media platforms.
Yeah.